Welcome to this week's BitShares Dev Hangout. This recording is brought to you by the Beyond Bitcoin crew. We welcome all BitShares members to join us weekly and discuss the latest news, updates, and developments. If you'd like to participate in our next meeting, then please join us live on Mumble every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Did you know the Beyond Bitcoin show now has a registered delegate? Please consider voting if you find our hangouts and recordings useful. The delegate name to vote for is fuzzy.beyondbitcoin. Again, that's fuzzy.beyondbitcoin. The Beyond Bitcoin crew would like to send out a big thank you to everyone who's already voted and allowing us the opportunity to serve the BitShares ecosystem and our valued community members. So once again, welcome and please enjoy the show.
This is just a reminder, Bytemaster attends these hangouts to answer questions and remain as transparent as he can. This is here for you to ask your questions. For those who are not able to join our forums very often but are still investors, they can get kind of a synopsis of what's going on throughout the week and kind of a general breakdown in 30 minutes to an hour. We will have multiple hangouts today. Bytemaster will be the first one and he will be providing an update and answering some community questions. I have pulled some questions from the thread. With that said, Bytemaster, do you have any updates for us this week that you'd like to talk about?
I'd like to just answer questions today.
First question is from Xerox. How long are your Monday meetings?
They start at 10 and go through lunch. We normally eat lunch at the end of the meeting.
Second question from Bitcoin Fan is about privatized assets, and this is the BitShares BitAsset 3.0 proposal. Being upfront when I'm saying I'm not against privatized assets. However, it does not seem like if we go in this direction, this means Delegate, BitUSD, and BitGold, etc. will go away. And this is an area of concern, as our core competency advantage will go with it. Now it becomes something that can easily be reproducible and stolen by other competitors. Rune himself is building on the Athyrium codebase and remarks how fast and easy it is to do. If he, with just an IT background, can do this on Athyrium, what is to say all the sophisticated features of BitShares won't also be developed on Athyrium by just casually invested coders?
Those are some good questions. First of all, I have never said that the delegate provided feeds, or basically elected feed producers, will go away. They'll have to compete against the private feed producers, just like BitShares will have to compete against private feed producers on other blockchains. As far as the ease of implementing something on Ethereum, I'd say it's easy to have a proof of concept. It's difficult to have a viable, scalable solution. We know from BitShares, with its native implementation, just how CPU and memory intensive it can be. And I know that the Ethereum VM, with its 256-bit address space and doing everything through its interpreter, it is going to be 1,000 times slower, easily, than what we will be able to do. So, yes, they can implement the contract, but how fluid, how integrated is it with their user interface? How easy is it to understand? The concept in Ethereum of not even having native support for user-issued assets, but making all user-issued assets, in effect, scripts themselves, I think really hinders how fast things can be processed on the network. So I'm not worried about someone cloning the theoretical contract in Ethereum, because if they ever get to the point of having millions of users using that contract, transaction fees are going to go through the roof, and that's where we want to be. Is we want to be where we can handle millions of users with low fees and easy to use. So I think there's a whole lot of merit to having standardized, natively supported contracts, in addition to having smart contracts for customized solutions. Yeah, am I worried about Ethereum? Not in the least.
Is this what you're talking about in the thread when you're talking about the heaviness of Ethereum?
Yes. All lookups to access data in Ethereum are going through a data structure that's ultimately backed by a level DB database. I think even Vitalik said that the lookup and data access fundamental with Ethereum is very slow on a big O analysis of the algorithm. To give you an idea of the importance of that, the reason BitShares is so slow today is because of our database structure. And BitShares, as slow as it is, and as memory intensive as it is far more efficient than Ethereum would ever be with its current design, because every memory access under Ethereum, any access to shared state, stored state, is going to be looking up in this map, and it's all random access because they're using these 256-bit identifiers. I haven't looked at the details, but I have talked to Vitalik, and Vitalik has told me about the complexity of it, and he has said that something will need to change in order to support markets and other features like we have in BitShares efficiently on the Ethereum platform. So it's like saying, yeah, you can implement anything you want in Visual Basic, but you're not going to build an operating system on Visual Basic.
Do you think that this is a fundamental flaw, or do you think that this is something they can work around?
They might be able to work around it. I've been looking at ways of accelerating their system, but I think it's pretty fundamental. You have to make some changes to reduce the algorithmic complexity of their design.
Related to this discussion is our object graph. Are we still proceeding and moving forward with efforts to work on the object graph in parallel with our efforts to release 1.0, or is that something you can't talk about, BM?
What I can say is that we've got a new database backend that is orders of magnitude faster, that allows us to reindex the entire BitShares blockchain, that amount of data in seconds versus hours that you have today while using less RAM. So we've got some major announcements coming with respect to performance improvements in BitShares, largely based around the idea of in-memory databases and objects.
With that said, is this, you're saying, two questions. Who's working on the database? Do you have multiple team members currently working on this?
The entire team is working to address major performance problems in BitShares. The hosted wallet needs these updates in order to support more users. So that's part of the WebSockets update is we can now do push notifications. We can now support more users off a single connection on a single server. So the entire team is focused on performance and getting the resource usage down, because a large number of our complaints about the usability of the system are we need light wallets. We need light wallets that can support 1,000 users connected to it with reasonable expenses on the server side, and users who want to run full nodes on old computers would like to be able to do so without all the delays. So when we looked at everything that slows down and hinders adoption, our performance, even though our performance is on par with Bitcoin, right? We can reindex a year's worth of our blockchain in the same time it takes Bitcoin to reindex a year's worth of its blockchain. That's too much of a delay. You tell someone download the client, all right, now wait several hours if you have an old PC with a regular hard disk, and now you can create your account, and now you can start receiving money. That doesn't work. So performance and scalability are key to the long-term viability of BitShares as a platform. And we're not the only ones that have recognized this. If you look at what Stellar has recently done, they've come out with a new release, and their CEO or spokesperson who basically said they were focusing on that particular aspect, and they were super excited about being able to do hundreds of transactions per second. I'm happy to say that I laugh at 100 transactions per second.
Of course, everybody's going to want to know if there's a rough date that you guys have scheduled where you would like to release this information. And I'll bring in the caveat here that everything that Bytemaster says, we're in cryptocurrency. We're in a very new industry where things can change very quickly. So everything that we ask in terms of timetables, we need to be very careful, because the past has shown us that with all of this type of stuff, it just takes one little thing to change everything in terms of a schedule. But to the best of your knowledge at present, do you have a date that you guys are planning on announcing, or a general time frame?
Do we have a date? Yes. Are we going to share it? No. All I can say is it will be a very exciting summer. We plan on having everything that we've been working on done, documented with all the messaging, figured out, so that when we announce and reveal what we've been working on in greater detail, that all the questions will be out there. That, we don't want to promise a bunch of stuff and then have infinite delays. And I'm kind of blurring the line here by telling you that we have big stuff coming this summer. But the main message is that the entire team is working tirelessly. We are bringing in extra members from the community, not just here in Blacksburg. Gradually increasing the number of people that are involved with what we're working on. And everyone we bring in is super, super excited by what we have going on. It's going to be game-changing for BitShares ecosystem.
Well, that sounds really awesome. We know that this stuff it changes at the drop of a hat, so it's a general time frame like this summer sounds fine with me personally, but I'm kind of a fanboy. So for some people that might not be good enough, but it's good to know that everybody who's working on it is very pumped up, right?
I can tell you this, internally we have a roadmap with milestones and a list of things that need to get done, broken down by weeks. We've got more documentation than BitShares has ever had, and we've got a long-term roadmap so that when we do come out with all this stuff, everything everyone's been clamoring for will be there. And we are treating this, trying to be much more professional and organized about how we do things. So I apologize to those of you who want answers today, but just know that we are working very hard to bring incredible value to everyone who's stays in the BitShares camp.
To be fair, there is the element that you have to walk a tightrope, right? You want to be open with everybody and tell everybody what's going on, and you have been extremely open. And I think that we've all learned to a degree that in open source technology, being open and following that ideal is nice, but it also causes a lot of extra headaches for all of us at times, right? For multiple reasons. So it's interesting that we're all having to learn this together, right? Actually, yeah, that is Fadat from the open source hardware project that we brought on a while back to talk about what they're doing. They're still around for everybody who's listening. There have been some people mentioning on the forums what has happened to them. They are still working in the background, and I am still working with them. So there's other stuff outside of BitShares that other people who are BitShares fanboys are working on to try to help bring value to our ecosystem as well. But this is time for Bytemaster, so I'm going to stop on that. Bytemaster, do you mind if I go back into? There's a question asked here by RHAG.
Yeah, RHAG asked, we allow someone to reindex from a more recent snapshot state, so they don't have to reindex from Genesis. Yes, that's exactly where we'd like to go. But with what we're working on, even reindexing from Genesis is so insignificant that in the blockchain transaction history is likely smaller than the shared state that would be built up. So until there's significant reason to do otherwise, we'll continue to reindex the whole thing. We're just going to make reindexing the whole thing take seconds instead of hours.
BitSapphire asks, do you think that due to a lack of information asymmetry, BitShares isn't a decentralized autonomous company, but rather a decentralized autonomous community?
There was a paper that came out about things. I would really like to avoid calling BitShares a decentralized autonomous company as anything other than a metaphor. I think we should view it more like a community, a membership organization. That we need to focus on that if we want to shield delegates from liability and also participants from perceived liabilities. The government can interpret things however they like, but according to a group of lawyers who've really looked into all this stuff, a membership organization is the structure that a DAC has to take in order to avoid being a security. And so that's where I would like to steer things to keep everyone in the legal clear. We know that it doesn't change the economics of the situation, but it does change how we have to think about it and teach what it is. You can view it almost like we're all in a giant co-op, a private community where we buy and sell things with our own private currency, and we're all members in that community. And because we're all members, a lot of things that apply to non-membership organizations, like a company serving customers has to interface with the world under one set of legal frameworks. But a membership organization servicing its own members has a lot more freedom and a lot less regulations applied to how those members can interact with each other. And that's something that we should be aware of. Long ago I said that a DAX could be viewed as a decentralized autonomous co-op, where we are both the owners and customers and users of the platform. I hope that answers that question.
So how do you foresee this changing? If we can dig down into this a little bit, because I see delegates would be very interested in this topic. For the delegates who listen to this, how do you see this playing out? How does that help protect them specifically? You've talked so far regarding offering services, but that's about as close as I think you've got to explaining the delegate aspect of it.
If you go with the DAC metaphor and delegates are deemed to be a board of directors on a illegal company, they could get in trouble in that way. I'd rather view delegates as minors, but where we're going in the future is separating out delegate roles so that we have block producers, which are separate from the other tasks, which will help keep the network stable and neutral from any type of regulatory perspective. But I wanted to throw that out there, that we are working on structuring BitShares in a way that is as legally compliant and resilient as possible, also serving to increase the level of decentralization and division of roles and responsibilities, kind of like the three branches of government in the United States. You divide the powers and then you separate it, and so you're decentralized in both number and roles.
So you're seeing it almost as a tiered system where there's going to be different tiers that offer different roles, essentially.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because for those who haven't been around for a long, since the very beginning, this harkens back to the discussions that we had in the very, very early days of BitShares. I'm sure you recall it when we were talking about, the writing of the Declaration of Independence and all the work that went into this stuff, and we're kind of looking at code taking on that form now, right?
In a way. A lot of the design decisions that we have in BitShares were based upon technology considerations as well as economics. We have the delegate system we have today because of how computationally expensive it is to calculate votes and store votes and track votes for delegates, as well as the mental effort associated with asking thousands of people to coordinate to select delegates and workers and proposals and all these other roles that people wanted. And I always pushed back on it because we didn't have the technological means to efficiently calculate it, and we didn't have a means to properly balance the attention span of the user base to a level that's appropriate. I believe we've got solutions to those problems now, so we can be more flexible in how we divide and conquer.
There was a period in time when we call this the merger, when there was, and I don't know that that's necessarily the perfect term for it, but this is when 3 of the DAX kind of combined resources and decided to kind of add those functionalities to each of these DAX into the BitShares flagship exchange DAC. Is some of this coming from from Adam Ernest and his team? Are they helping with this? Because it seems like this is going more toward voting and governance.
Adam's team is doing a lot to help us market and prepare and pitch BitShares as is. He's also working the voting angle with governments and stuff on the side. I'd say Adam's really been there to help me with all the marketing and networking angle of things. The voting play is a long lead time play, and it's going to require lots of things to be built into the system. One of those things is identity verification and management, and that's the primary place where we've been working with him.
So he's working more on the voting types of things, well, voting in the real world, in governmental elections and things like that, and marketing.
Yes, he's building a business model. Business model is going to focus around driving users to the system for the purposes of participating in polls. A business model focused around getting verified users. And that's a big part of the referral system, is we needed to find a system that would motivate someone like Adam to build on BitShares rather than start his own chain, and to make sure that there is shared network effect. We're really excited about where we're going with both the referral program that will be announced with much greater detail sometime within the next month or 2.
Along with this, since we're on the topic of governance and this new kind of slightly changed model, DeLulo asked here, there's 2 questions that I think are pretty pertinent given what we're talking about. Does the BitShares consider any changes to the consensus mechanism, DPoS, delegated proof of stake, at the moment? BitSapphire has suggested a few very interesting ideas in a Mumble session about 2 weeks ago.
Consensus is really just a matter of establishing the public record. There are many ways that you can establish a public record. Not all ways are equal. The protocol, which is just a set of operations that end up mutating the shared database, that can operate in theory on any consensus mechanism. But different consensus mechanisms have different performance characteristics. Proof of work has eventual consistency, but it's very hard to get immediate consistency. A lot of other proof-of-stake systems, anything where there's a race to produce a block, whether it's a stake-based race or a proof-of-work-based race, leads to variance in block production. You need consistency in the block production. You also need systems that have minimal communication overhead, because the speed of light is the limiting factor on these global systems. So protocols like Ripple that require a lot of nodes to communicate back and forth go through a number of rounds of negotiations before they converge on the next closed ledger. Those systems all suffer from network latency issues that ultimately hinder their performance. I haven't looked at the exact details of the latest Stellar protocol, but their numbers show that like 3 or 4 seconds, I believe, is what they said they can reach consensus in. Delegated proof of stake and variance of shareholders electing a set of people to produce blocks means that there's a lot more predictability and a lot less synchronization overhead. The only thing we have to worry about is propagation delay for a block to be produced from a delegate in China and received by a delegate in the United States within the proper time. In theory, with a high bandwidth connection, that can be done in as little as a second. Ping back and forth can be like half a second. So that's sort of the lower bound of how fast these things can go. And I think delegated proof of stake can get us as close to the theoretical maximum as defined by the speed of light of any protocol that's going to have global synchronization.
Is this going to open up any warp tunnels? I'm joking. The second question from DeLulo here is, do you see voter apathy as a problem? Voter apathy having two dimensions: A, quantitative, the amount of shares that vote, and B, qualitative, the quality of the shareholders' decisions.
Voter apathy is a problem, as well as I'd like to address another question simultaneously regarding the attention span. Delegated proof of stake with 101 delegates has a security vulnerability in if people don't have enough time to pay attention to 101 delegates, they only vote for, say, 20. Then you have this long tail of 80 delegates that's not carefully scrutinized like the top 20 are. And that the chain would actually be more secure with higher trust with 20 well-scrutinized delegates versus 100 delegates that no one really knows who they are. Where that balance is, I don't know. Is 101 too much? Is 20 too little? And the number might change over time as systems mature. So the solution to the attention span issue is to have a dynamic number of block producers based upon how many people actually vote for it, how many producers the shareholders want. So you can't say that you want more delegates than you're willing to actually vote for, but you can say you want less delegates than you are willing to vote for. And with that system in place, the network can adapt to express the intentions of the stakeholders about the amount of decentralization that's necessary, that's efficient, and that gives the proper level of decentralization. So I really do think it's important that we not overload all the users with having to make a lot of these decisions. Also, more automated delegating of voting. So you can pick someone you trust to vote, and then you can just set it and forget it. Those type of features are what we're doing to increase the voter turnout and the rate at which we can respond to changes.
Fair enough. Well, I know that we're running a little bit over. Do you mind if I give you a couple more questions and then we can finish up? Still be a good bit under an hour.
Sure.
One of them was from Data Security Node, and I want to ask this question because he's working on Bunker Shares, and I want everybody to know that Bunker Shares is a user-issued asset that he's offering, and it's going to help with providing different services at the bunker where he's going to have a data center. And he's asking here, how can I, in practical terms, set up a long-term bond, say 10 years plus, producing the BitShares product, using the BitShares platform as the vehicle to both hold funds and also produce yield for the holders of the bond? Pretty deep question, I know, for on the spot, but you do have a knack for thinking about complex things. So maybe if you know, please let us know. If you don't, that's fine.
This is an uncollateralized bond. It's basically an IOU from his service that he's going to be paying on.
I would imagine so. He doesn't really give a whole lot of details in terms of that. So you would probably need a little bit more information for that question.
I need to know more about what he's actually trying to achieve, because there are many ways to achieve that. I'd say that in the long term, Turing-complete scripting will allow him to express anything that's possible. In the short term, multi-sig accounts and some server that's automatically doing transactions off-chain is what would be required.
Well, thank you. And this is the last question, and it's not so much of a question as a topic, and I'll keep it short and pretty succinct. We had this week, we've been talking about a PR focus group in the background and how we would take care of this. So I put up a poll on the forums asking if we should have a PR group. And I got on this poll, it looks like the majority of stakeholders, there were 38 votes, so it's not exactly statistically significant yet, but considering that our community is, generally the big polls receive 100 votes or so, it's getting closer to that point. And we currently have 20 who are leaning toward yes, and 10 leaning towards no. 8 are neutral. What are your thoughts regarding the PR group? And sticking to kind of the question that the premise that you brought up last week regarding what we've learned, is there anything you've learned from this process that we've been all trying to go through with regard to the PR front?
I've learned that we need to avoid socializing activities, and that we need to provide profit incentives for people to be proactive in managing their own PR. I don't think it's right for anyone to speak or claim to speak on behalf of all BitShares holders, even myself. I am just one opinion, trying to produce a robust platform that's open and neutral for everyone to use. But what it is and how it's marketed and promoted, I think should be left up to individual entrepreneurs who can create profitable businesses around explaining it and managing the PR however they want it managed. So I think the only thing we need is a discussion on the forum and then just consensus by how people start to do things in teaching and talking about BitShares is the way to go. As far as what we're doing is, well, we've got a company with building a service on top of the BitShares platform, and it's going to have a PR group that's going to manage stuff for our company, and that's going to be a private concern, and our success in the BitShares ecosystem will depend upon how well we can actually get a handle on that. And anyone else who wants to go and start their own company and build on the platform, you can have different PR campaigns for different companies in the BitShares ecosystem, just like you have different PR from BitPay and Coinbase and Bitstamp and BTC38. Each of these companies has to manage their own PR, and they are all indirectly managing the PR of Bitcoin. And I think that's the way things should be. And that's a big part of the referral system structure is that it rewards those who can attract users and keep users in the system.
And that kind of harkens back to what RG Crypto was talking about in terms of letting the businesses that build on top of BitShares deal with the PR stuff. One question that comes to mind with regarding that would be more of, and I don't know if there's really a distinct answer, if you've even thought about this, but it just comes to mind at present, thinking about it. Do you see it as a potential issue if somebody, say, someone who has produced many scams in the past, were to come in with, looking at their company, bringing a company in that is, intending to hurt the PR image of BitShares, or do you think that that's a non-issue?
Scam accusations are always messy, and they usually end up causing bad PR for the person who's making the accusation. So if there is someone out there who's doing something questionable, they own that, and we just need to be very consistent as a community to place responsibility on individuals and focus on our own integrity rather than trying to tear down other people. Oftentimes, you don't know what other people are doing or if it's a scam or what their intentions are, and judging other people's intentions gets messy quickly and usually hurts you. So that's my general stance. I want to avoid getting entangled in the judging of other people.
This is something that Bitcoin has suffered from substantially because of all of the announcement threads asking for people to donate a certain amount of Bitcoin to a project that is going to go somewhere that goes nowhere. It's just something I feel it would be interesting for us to consider moving forward. I'm glad to have your opinion. I know we're all learning sometimes the hard way. I know for a fact I have been learning the hard way on a few fronts myself. But thank you very much for showing up today and answering some of these questions for the community. To everybody who has not had their question asked, I apologize. We try to get to as many of them as possible, and I try to bring them and guide your questions along our journey to make it seem like it's a seamless type of conversation. So if your question did not necessarily fit into the framing of what we were talking about today, please ask it next week, and I will try to bring it up as the conversation allows. And thank you very much, Bytemaster. Is there anything you would like to let everybody know on the way out?
If you need to get a hold of me, private message me on BitSharesTalk.org. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me there. And otherwise, stay strong. We are working to change the world, and this is much bigger than anything that goes on with the share price. Making money is a side effect of accomplishing our mission, but our mission is not about making money. It's about providing ways to secure life, liberty, property, and economic freedom, economic efficiency. And if you provide those things, we will make money. But we just need to stay true to this. BitShares is not another pump and dump coin or a coin without a mission. We have a mission, we have a purpose, and we have technology and a whole lot of really smart people. BitShares is everyone who's on this Mumble session, everyone who's on the forums. It's what we can do together to make the world a better place. And I think we've got some of the brightest minds in crypto here, and that ultimately this community will figure out how to grow and expand and bring in more people. These record low prices that we've seen are a huge opportunity. The BitShares are consolidating into strong hands, into the people who believe in what we stand for and believe in the potential of this group of people. So keep up the good work. I value each and every one of you, and you'll be hearing a lot of stuff coming from us over the course of the next 2 months. So fasten your seatbelts.
What a perfect way to end this Mumble session. Thank you, Bytemaster.
Yeah. I can't, there's nothing I can say other than that either. I'll tell you what, though, I'm noticing a lot of altcoins starting to go, what the heck is delegated proof of stake, and why aren't we using it? So obviously you were ahead of your time, BM, and a lot of us figured that out pretty early. Some of us figured out a little bit later, but it's still very, very early in the game. So if you're here or you're listening to this, you are one of very few people who sees some really good stuff coming down the line too. Thank you very much, BM. Thank you everybody for showing up.